Hello, it's Lily, and we're back again with a video about creating texture in your altered book. So, I'm going to try to show you like multiple different ways to create texture, and this is like creating texture mostly with ink or paint, some form of ink, for lack of a better word. In other words, not creating texture with like paper or extra materials, but really just using the page and some form of ink. We are, hopefully at the end, we'll get into maybe adding tape in too. We'll see how long this goes. That might be a different video. As always, I'm going to try to show you completed examples, and I'm going to try to do a little bit of the process. I have my little tiny book that I'm working in just for these videos, and that keeps me from getting like too far involved so that I get distracted. I'm going to move this just a little bit, just a little bit this way so you can see more of my table. Okay, so first thing I want to show you is doodles. And here's some examples of doodles that I have done in the past. These are book pages. I tore them out of the book, but they are book pages. And so this first one here, I think there's another name for this that's escaping me right now. But you can find like whole like coloring books that have this kind of artwork that you would then color in. But in this case, what I did is, presumably I found my words first, and then I went back and just used black ink to create the texture around those words. I did some shapes and coloring in, and then I did some just more geometrical, like graphic type stuff. And I changed my pattern when it was a new part of the poem. So that's one way you could go about it. This is a different example that has color down underneath the all black doodling. So that looks cool. We might do that today. I'd have to get some color on pretty quickly. And then this one actually also uses color, but the ink itself, the doodling itself was done in ink of different colors, but it was still like a ballpoint pen type ink. So it's a little bit different effect. You can do a lot more like tinier type patterns. I mean, particularly like this, that would be really hard to do with like a paint marker or a crayon. So just having pens that are different colors, you can make cool patterns. And again, I think there were 3 parts of this poem, and I changed the pattern depending on which part of the poem I was working on. So that's a couple cool examples, and we'll just give it a go here. Like I said, I think you would first want to find the word. I think I'm going to use, I have 3 pens here. I have my Sharpie, I have my Arteza ball pen, and then I have my Arteza. This is more of like a sort of like a Sharpie, actually. I think I'm going to use that one because I don't think this will run. I think it dries faster. So yeah, if I want to put a little color down, let's see. Let's choose words first. This is a German dictionary, so it's not really like it's not easy to find words, but even if I could just find a couple phrases. I have, which way is the restaurant? Where can I have a wash? Have you any honey? Tea for 1, coffee for 3. I sort of like the, oh, maybe we'll do this one. It says, isn't necessary. It's always a good, one of my favorite phrases is it true? Isn't necessary feels very similar to that. I'm just crossing out the words. I circled the entire section and then I'm just crossing out the words in that little section that I don't want. Isn't necessary. We have I hope, I will be, or that is much better. How much is that? Like I said, difficult to find like a true poem. Maybe we just stick with is it necessary? Yeah. It would be better if I had like 3 sections like I was showing you before, but as mentioned, I'm trying to keep this simple, so we'll just do 1 section. So I'm just going to throw down a little bit of color as a background, and I'm going to get my brush wet. I'm using an acrylic paint that I hope is going to show up, but then I'm going to get my brush a little bit wet so I have less saturation. And I'm just going to put my little piece of paper between so I don't get the page behind it messed up. And we're just going to throw down some color just to have something. I think it was Damien that mentioned adding water to acrylic paint, I think. And so I tried that out in my last book installation and I really liked it. I like that it really mimics watercolor well. It like there's a lot of variation in the color as I'm applying it. And this is just, you know, acrylic paint and water, so not a huge investment. You can use a cheap brush and cheap paint for this. Okay, so that's nice. Hopefully you can see that. I'll put that brush in water, and now, dry. And now we're just going to a thinner piece of paper. This pages of this book are so thin. They also have a little sheen to them, which is cool. Anyway, and now we're just going to, we're not using any of the rest of the words. So we can cover them up. So maybe I want some sort of divider so it doesn't get overwhelming for myself, basically. So maybe I still want some sort of division here, and that will let me decide where I'm going to put my patterns. So you can go, you know, you can go as simple as you want. Like an X is always a good one. You fill in with X's. And again, we're just trying to create our own texture without using any excess materials like other papers, cutouts. Just keeping it simple. This is a really good activity when you're like completely overwhelmed by the world and you just need to do something with your hands. Get out one of your book pages and just start creating plain texture. X's are good, O's are good. O's are a little bit more difficult. Maybe I want to do like you know, an open pattern and then a filled in pattern. And I made myself a little grid and I'm sort of sticking to it, but obviously you could just throw down symbols wherever you want. You would not. You don't have to do them in any orderly fashion. Sometimes that works better for my brain. If you haven't figured out by now, I'm a very concrete thinker, so. And also I'm a planner, so I sort of need to know ahead of time what I'm doing, even though process art is a good way to get out of that box I have created for myself. I'm trying to fill in so it's not so orderly. Trying to trick myself here. Okay. And then arrows are good. You know, maybe I want to do, since this is the main part of it, I could do a question mark because it's a question. Is it necessary? So this would be like a bigger, I could include some of the, and I'm going into my other grid here. Just doodling. What are they called? Put in the comments if you know what they call the artwork. I'm blanking on what this is called, but like when it's just black and white and it's all these different patterns. I know there's a name for it. What's another good one? Like maybe like lightning bolts would work. And this is a very small page, so you could see how if you're doing a bigger page, you could play around with this. You could use like a thicker marker and maybe make some bigger patterns. I think that would be cool. Or you could do, if you have a lot of patience, unlike me, you could do like even tinier patterns. What else? I could do some sort of grid, right? Just stick with my, at the very least, I do try like not to, I mean, it would be a whole different idea if I was like actually measuring this stuff out and using rulers to get everything lined up. I don't think I have the patience to do something like that, but if it floats your boat, if you're like of the architecture mindset, mathematical mindset, you might enjoy actually measuring these things out and getting it very precise. What's another one I've used? Just like a squiggle. A real squiggle. So if we did lines over here, additional lines. And I am working fast, but you know, video takes what it takes. So then these little lines allow me to do some cool squiggles on a smaller scale and keep them somewhat in line. Actually, I really like this pattern I'm creating here. This texture is cool. I wish I knew more about this pen. I think what I did is from Arteza, I ordered a set, I think, of like fancier, not just rollerball, but fancier. They're similar to Sharpies, but I like the gloss on it. It does seem like it's, it is smudging just a bit in the corners. So I will need to set this aside to dry. Yeah, but anyway, that's the idea of the black and white doodling. I think it's fun if it goes with the, you know, words, or if it goes with your mood, or, you know, you just want to try something different. I think "is it necessary" is a good instance to use just like a simple black and white pattern, because it feels as though you're asking a simple but also very fundamental, existential question. I could do more with the question mark. I think, let's see, I could do more pattern in the corners here, but I think I basically want to leave it as is. Yeah, that's it. I'll show you up close. Pretty simple, which is the point. And I really like the texture, the color behind it is a way to add to the texture. These are actually, these are also Arteza acrylic paints, and they've got like a little, it doesn't say it on here, but they've got a little shine to them, which is nice. Okay, so that's the black ink doodling. You could really go to town with it, obviously, as I have in the past. And now, I kind of get this to dry a bit. I have a separate book just that I'm just going to take a couple pages out of. I'm not altering the book, but I've saved it to use pages. Because I like showing you guys real examples, not just doing this on, on random stuff. So this is a book that I've been hanging on to since I was in high school. And I want to start using it in my art. So the next thing I want to show you is actually using acrylic paint to create texture. And I have my examples somewhere. I have a lot of stuff out on my table right now. Okay, so here's one example of actually creating basically a pattern, but the pattern provides texture as a background for your words. This is a little more, this is still very abstract, but it's a little more involved than just boxes or coloring obviously you can always color the entire page one color, and that is its own kind of texture, like a color washing. But usually when you're creating texture when I'm creating texture with markers or paint. Oh, I think I'm showing you the wrong thing. I think I skipped. Oh well, we'll skip to paint markers anyway. I'm creating some sort of geometrical pattern. So I really like this one with the lines. This one here. The lines down, and then the poem comes out in those lines. And the other one I really like is 2 pages over in this book. Is the same idea as lines, but the lines take a turn. So almost like a map idea. So I thought that would be a really good one to recreate if we could find. I like this one, but this would be a little bit more challenging for me to do in the moment. But if we could find a couple good phrases to highlight, I switched techniques on you there. I started out talking about acrylic paint, and now I'm talking about paint markers. So anyway, you're smart. I think you can catch up. I'll just do like a yellow green. I've been using so much blue lately. You'll see when you get my book. There's so much blue in it. I'll do a yellow green coral kind of thing. So if we want to create, and also this creating lines is a good one for a lot more colors. Like you saw in those examples, I did a lot of colors. First we want to find our words. I'll use a Sharpie since I know it's gonna be. And there's one that pops out right away. This love is not mere words, so that's nice. Love is not mere words. That's a nice phrase. I must tell you that love is not mere words. I I like that. I sort of need 3, but I also like how both of these are at the end of the paragraph. Sometimes it's fun to deliberately find words that are along one side, and then you automatically have at least an indication of a direction to go in with your geometry. The result is, I don't have anything. I must tell you that love is not mere words. How about I am the result? I am the result. Or I am beloved. Love is not, I must say that love is not mere words. I like I am the result for whatever reason. We don't know. If we knew what was going on in Lily's brain. Okay. So I'm reading, the poem is gonna go 1, 2, 3. And maybe eventually I would actually write those numbers, because I do like doing that. So we'll start with green. Now remember, like one way to do this, a much quicker way to do this would be just for me to black out, lack of a better phrase, to cover over just the text on the page. But what I want to do is create more of a texture than that. So I'm going to, I haven't thought this through. This is all in the moment, just for you. So let me think about what I want to do here. So I want to create a line. So maybe I use all 3 colors in all 3 sections would be the easiest thing to do. And this line is going to go right there. It's kind of fat. And so I'm trying to create like some even. Oh, this is nice. I could just do. So I'm just thinking line. How do I keep the simplest option in my head and still make cool texture? So I could keep going down with this, or I could switch. Oh, I'm gonna need one more color. Darn it, I did this wrong. Or I could switch. I think I will switch. I wanted to show you these ways to create texture, because it takes a long time in my experience to make a collage. Sometimes you spend all your time just searching for the right, that one right word, or that one right image, or in my case, I spend a lot of time focusing on a certain color story, and then you could spend a whole night. I have spent whole nights just looking for, am I gonna keep going with this? Yeah. Just looking for images or textures that are in that color story. I need one more color for this to work, really. That's okay. It's process art, right? The page is telling me what it wants to do. I could try for, like an ivory. Nah. Nope. What about a brown? Brown? Sure. Okay, so I need a down. So yes, so anyway, so this is one way to create, to still get the experience of process art without getting bogged down in the weight that comes with making collage. All right, so that's my first pattern. Now I need a different pattern. If you don't have paint markers, I know some of you don't want to invest in paint markers, and that's fine. Use Sharpies, use highlighters, use colored pencils. Let's see, I want to keep it, at the very least, I want to keep it linear, I think. So, sort of an obvious pattern here because I've already created a pattern for myself. I'm not really coloring a lot of this in because I'm just liking the way the line looks on the page. I could easily keep going with that and see where I end up. And what's the worst thing that happens? The worst thing that happens is I hate this. And then this becomes some sort of pattern I use in a collage because I could rip it up. Maybe it becomes something that I end up adding to so that I like it more. There's lots of options. So nothing I'm doing is, you know, it's gonna make or break my life. It's just for fun. So I'm just kind of in my own way, taking some risks. Now I need to fill in the rest of this with yellow. It's not so bad. I want these to be closer together. The nice thing about paint markers is I can go back and fill in, like if I accidentally get one color on top of the other, and once it's all dry, I can just go back and fix that. Kind of like painting. What I can't do is take away color. Obviously, I would have to have like an ivory, a true ivory, to block out color. But like where I got my yellow over my green, the green is already dry. I can just go back and, whoops, redo that. Make a clean line. So, all right, I'm liking it. I'm liking it. I think this would be fun to eventually add more to, because first of all, I really like this color story. So we need one more graphic line-based pattern, or maybe we don't do a line, maybe we do something different. I'm sort of stuck in this line now. So maybe I'll just go and do like a V. V is a line and an X is a line. I was gonna change the direction, but I'm not going to. I'm mumbling to myself. So maybe, dun, dun, dun. There's no rhyme or reason. I wanted to have the yellow by the words this time, so okay. Okay. I'm also liking that. I'm liking the idea of maybe leaving some negative space. Who am I? So leave a tiny bit of negative space and see what happens. There we go. It does make it seem like if I leave the space, to me it makes it seem like the middle part is the most important, which wasn't really my intention. So I don't know. I might fill in. I think what I would do is come back and do some collage over this because I think it would be cool. Maybe I just do some extra patterning on these edges. To make it stand out. Who knows? Anyway, that's paint marker pattern. Again, you don't have to use paint markers. You could use Sharpies. Highlighters are really cool, actually. I wish I had. I do have a highlighter, texture I've created with highlighter, but I can't think offhand what book it would be in. But yeah, so this is kind of fun to get away from that. Maybe if you're already finding yourself tied to a certain way of covering the words you don't want. I mean, I think the typical way to go about it is just to color over the words. And so this is an option, an alternative to doing it that way. And it's going to add a lot of texture to your book because it's going to immediately, you know, stand out from those other pages that are just more traditional blackout. Okay, that's creating pattern from. The other thing I love about paint markers, immediately dry. I can immediately do something else with this, which is cool. Okay. Now, let's see what's next. I'm gonna get a different sheet from that book so that we can mosey on. What was I gonna show you? I was gonna show you, jelly plates. This is another thing you would have to invest in if you're interested in creating this texture. But this is a jelly plate. Mine's very dirty, has paint all over it. That's okay. This is a very small one, so I thought I would show you how to use this. And that way, if you're interested, you could pick up a small one and it wouldn't be as expensive. They make really big ones. They make page length ones. They make ginormous ones. They make round ones. You will need a tray. Typically, you'll need like a brayer to use for this process. Let me show you some examples. This is, okay, the first example is this one, and this is just a texture that I created on a jelly plate that I then printed onto my book. So that is a really cool way to get texture. And then the wonderful thing about jelly printing is that you never really know what you're gonna get. This is another example of where I made the texture on a separate piece of paper using a jelly plate, and then I pasted that into my book to have more texture on this page. But since what I'm showing you today is just meant to be ink on page, then we're gonna do it that way, okay? So I just need a little bit of paint. I can do multiple colors, but literally it just takes a dot of paint sometimes to get a cool texture. I have 3 colors here. Hopefully they all show up on screen. So I've got 3 very small dots of paint, and I'm gonna go ahead and spread those out. Not necessarily mixing, but I'm spreading them to get a whole pattern. I think I'm gonna need a little more yellow and blue because I got too much purple. And on a jelly plate, you can find all kinds of videos on using jelly plates, and I will let you learn how to use it that way because I'm still a novice myself. but you will find that you do not need a lot of paper. So we have options here. One option is that I'm going to print right using this plate. I'm going to print onto my paper, which just means pressing down and creating a monoprint from this paint that was on my Gelli plate. It's a really cool process. And you never know what you're gonna get, even if you think you do. And then I could, if I wanted to, go ahead and fill in the rest of the page. I probably would have to put a little more ink down to fill in the rest of the page, but now what I forgot to do was find words, but that's okay. This could be a case where I'm making a pattern for words from another page in the book, or maybe from words that I had cut out from somewhere else. So it's a really cool idea. And I could also just take this and say, this is a pattern that I'm then gonna paste, you know, tear, rip, and use in collage or use to create a texture. The other thing I can do with this paint is put it out on my, and I'll just show you this maybe with one color, put it out on my Gelli plate. And my Gelli plate is so dry because I haven't used it in so long. Put it on my Gelli plate, and then I can actually, if you have a brayer, you don't have to have a brayer to use a Gelli plate. You can spread stuff with your hand or a paintbrush. But if you have a brayer, then, oh, I think it's my brayer that's, okay, let me do that one more time. If you have a brayer, then what's cool is you can actually use the brayer to also create texture. I've been really digging like one color texture recently and have been making, I'll show you, doing one color texture on top of printed out pages. So that's what it looks like. And then I'm then gonna use those in something else. So all I did was put one color on my brayer. Ta-da, we have texture. Very easy and cool looking. Obviously you'd have to be more careful if you were trying to go around words or something like that, but. So that's cool, huh? And that's a very small lesson on Gelli printing. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to go Gelli plate brayer avenue, find something that has texture. And this will be similar to what we did with the leaves. Find something that has texture and then brayer over it. You could do this on a Gelli plate or directly onto your, I'm gonna show you how you might do it without a Gelli plate, and we're gonna see what happens. So I just have a tray here. I guess I'll use, no. I just have a tray here that I put my paint in. And the big thing here would be, you know, not putting too much paint on the brush. Because what we're really trying to do is just get something cool from this and not saturate our paper. So I got paint on my brush and then I kind of took it off. I don't even know if this is going to work. Let's try a little section and see. They do make brushes specifically for things like this. They make stenciling brushes, I guess. They're usually round and you can pop, pop, pop with them. I probably have one. Oh, it's actually working. It's really cool. Oh, too close. Too close, Lily. It's really cool. I actually really like that. Yeah, I thought I had one of those brushes somewhere, but again, I couldn't tell you where, and that's why I get my supplies ready ahead of time. This is the other cool, I've been hanging on to this cool pattern for a while. So why don't we give that a shot at the bottom here. I'll stick with the same color. This is a cool Again, I don't want too much paint on my brush. If you've never done stenciling, you might not know that it's easy for the paint to creep up under your stencil. So, but anyway, that's what I'm doing. I'm sort of treating these as a stencil. So if you've done that in the past, this would work well with, like, you know, the bags you get from limes and oranges. You could create your own stencil just with a hole punch and some, you probably want a thicker paper, like maybe take a cardboard bag, tear a strip off and punch some holes in it, and then do this, and you'd be creating, I think I'm off the page here. Let's see. Yeah, so that's cool. If you ever, I think I said this in a previous video, but if you find texture, hang on to it because you can always use it in your book. So I got a couple cool patterns there. One final thing I did want to show you is, and keeping with this theme of the blue on the corners, if you have a hole punch, I have a single hole punch that I use in my art. Let's see how far in I can go. What I did in a recent book is I'm just going to make a strip of paint where I want to punch the holes. And I just punched them right onto the book page, which I thought was cool. Should be very easy to do with very little investment. Okay, so here's my strip of blue. And then I am just going to punch holes. Maybe I do one more of those since it's sort of random. I'll do one on the edge maybe. Or maybe I just paint this whole section. I'm going to do some more. Some more hole punching. I mean, honestly, this paint is a cool, you know, dry brushing paint on is a really simple way. By dry brushing, I just mean that you get paint on your brush and then you wipe most of it off so that you're not saturating something with paint. You're creating, you know, almost like a more transparent paint so that you can still see what's under it, which is cool in books because book pages are already interesting in and of themselves. So there's my 3 different textures on top of a jelly print, which looks cool, and my 3 different sort of like, I guess, stenciled. And then if we want to try out just using, probably this is a thicker one. I don't think this would work necessarily as a stamp. I mean, maybe it would work if I bunched it, because my other idea was to use paint to actually stamp onto the page. I mean, yeah, to use paint. Maybe if I bunch this up, let me change pages because this one's getting kind of gloopy. I would do the same thing probably where I'm saturating my stamp and then, but then I'm gonna wipe some of that off because I don't want my page to look like that. But yeah, and basically I could just stamp right on. It's working. You could also just use an actual sponge. You can also use potatoes. Did anyone ever do potato crafts with their kids? You could do that in your book. That's one way to go about it. And then I got way too much yellow paint, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to use that. Let me go to the purple. Oh, I still have some purple over here. Let's see. If I just cover this in purple paint, we'll see if I can just get a stamp out of it onto. So when I stencil, I'm getting the negative. When I stamp, I'm getting the thing itself. And I had lots of paint on here, so this is going to be gloopy. That one I'm not loving as much. And the gloopy is cooler than the what I got out of the. This is just dry brushing. You see, the drier your brush, in some ways the cooler the texture. The other thing I will encourage you to do if you're using acrylic painting at all, if you're using acrylic paint, is to use it up. So I got way too much yellow there. So maybe I would just get a few pages. This book is a good example. Maybe I would just get a few pages, book pages that I know I want to use, but I don't know what I want to do with. And I could just dry brush and create my own texture the way I'm doing here. Or I could literally just say, whoops, I got way too much paint. I'm just gonna go ahead and paint this onto a book page, and one day I will use it in some fashion. But that way you're not like pouring paint down the drain or putting it in the trash, and you're also not wasting your hard-earned dollars by throwing paint away. So please don't throw paint away. Always use it. There's always something you could use the paint on. I just put it all over this page. I'll let it dry. And then I could go in and put another texture on top of that. I could do a pattern on top of it. I could use this as a solid color texture in a collage if I needed something this color. So that's a fun process. Ta-da, that's done. Okay, what else? Oh, we have time. Yeah, I think we have time to do tape. So this is a little bit different because it's not using ink necessarily, but I thought I'd throw it in because I couldn't quite fit it into last week's video. 2 weeks ago is when I did the video, but it was very long, so I didn't want to put more on there. I'm going to show you 2 examples of texture I created using patterned tape, which they call washi tape. I think 2 examples, yeah. So one way is a sort of maybe what you would expect, but I used it, I'm trying to get stuff out of the way here. I used it for this border. I had already painted the entire page actually with an acrylic paint, a blue acrylic paint, sort of like a wash here or a dry brushing technique. And then I just used already patterned tape all around the corners to add some texture. The other way I have used washi tape is for it to be the pattern itself, basically. This entire page I covered in a white and black polka dot washi tape, and then I left, it's gonna be hard to see, but this is the back side of the page that I had already done a poem on. So I left some of it at the bottom and doubled it over and then cut, and it became fringe at the top and bottom. So sort of texture, but also decoration. So that was a really cool process. I was thinking of doing something similar to the, where's my tape? Similar to the border, but maybe doing like a triple border effect, because I have 3 patterns. Well, this one's a solid color, but I have 3 different tapes. The thing I have found with washi tape is that it doesn't stick. So it doesn't stay down. It might stay down at first, but it doesn't stay down long term. So I'm going to go ahead and lay down some glue. I'm just using a glue stick to be quick about it, but in real life I might use Mod Podge for this or another glue. I do like with a glue stick. I've noticed, I've been using it a bit more, and I've noticed you have more leeway to move your items around before you have to leave them where they are. But sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. So sometimes that annoys me because I think I have it in place and then it moves. So typically when I'm doing something with tape, I just give myself a little extra. I don't try to be exact on the ends, and then again, I can always go back and cut that off, or I could fold it over and make, you know, if I just fold this over, actually, there's no glue back here, but what I'm doing is making my page a lot stronger, and these pages are very thin, so this isn't a bad thing to fold over. And I'm going to use my baby brayer just to get a good seal on that. Okay, that's my first border. And now I want to make a second border that's going to slightly overlap. So I'm just going to put my glue partly on top of that. And I'm going to make a second border. Now, maybe you are saying, thank you for showing me all of these techniques. How do I know when to use which technique? If you are asking yourself that, or me that in your head, my response would be, you know, to let the text guide you. So if you know, you've chosen your words already and you've gotten a poem out of it, you know, think about maybe a larger thematic, you know, is the text pointing you towards a certain art installation? Is something it says pointing you to that, or is its placement on the page pointing you? I mean, more often than not, I just, after I've chosen my words, I might have a color story in mind or I might not, but after I've chosen my words, the placement of those words on the page will 99% of the time dictate what kind of art installation I'm going to do. I might already have ideas like, oh, I want to do collage on this, or I want to only use paint markers. But at the end of the day, that placement of the words on the page is going to give me the direction to go in. Whether it's like a very vertical placement, then maybe I want to do something geometric. Maybe I want to keep it simple. Or if the poem is all over the place, I know that I'm probably going to be using arrows, which are already very geometric. Then maybe I want to use a softer background and do like a color wash with some stenciling, or a color wash with, you know, pen ink on top of it. So, you know, let the text speak to you. And keep in mind that you can always, always, always change your mind. So you can always change it, do over it, or if you really loved the words but hated what you were doing with them, you can always cut those words out and use them on another page. So be free, little birds, be free. Okay, this tape is not as thick as the other two, so I'm not going to overlay it as much. I'm really glooping it on. It's just if I can get more of a symmetrical. There we go. Oh, see, my tape just moved. You probably can't see that far, but my tape just moved because the glue has a longer drying time, the glue stick. But anyway, I was sort of liking this idea of 3 tapes that go together and how they might look as one big border. I could keep going with it and make an entire page with this pattern. That would be kind of similar to what we did when we did the this one, the stripes using paper. I could do stripes out of tape easily. How well you can see this. There's my border. Yeah. If I wanted to do a 2-page spread, maybe I would do something different over here with the tape. Then I've got a 2-page spread going, but it's not as symmetrical. So I could just do, it's harder to do this direction because it gets in the little cracky cracks. I'll just do a quick one. Then we're gonna shut this thing down and let you go on about your day. I'm calling these sort of like geometric textures, linear textures, I don't know. What is your word for it? Because I don't really have a word for it. It's just, well, I guess I do. My word for it is geometric, but I'm not sure that that's accurate use of that word. But yeah, it's all kind of line based. Okay, here's where the glue stick comes in handy because I got that. I put that down somewhere I didn't want it, and I could just pick it up and move it. I don't know if you're anything like me. You have washi tape sitting around because it was trendy and you bought it once and then you realized it doesn't actually work that well, and now it's just sitting there taking up space. That is my history with washi tape. So I'm glad to be trying to find various ways to use it in my art. I basically treat it as paper. I glue it and cut it and tear it the same way I would paper. So, just because in my experience, it isn't long lasting unless you adhere it somehow. Okay. And then we could fold these over, or we could cut them off. Either way is valid. I will cut these off since I folded the others over. And what's cool about that is I get another little pattern that I can use, and I'll just put it here. I'm gonna put glue down. Very bright, springy color pattern. Color palette, not color pattern. There we go. That's my examples of borders with washi tape. Obviously I would go in and do more with this spread. And honestly, probably I would likely create the border after I had done what I wanted to do on the spread, but negative space. Okay. Cool, thank you for hanging out, especially if you made it all the way to the end. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.